Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhagavati Naistiki. So we're continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 24, the philosophy of Sankhya. So we studied yesterday the prayers by Avanti Brahman and how he's lamenting, and then how he's saying, if we control our mind, there cannot be happiness or distress that can disturb us. Now, again, Krishna is coming back to the philosophy of Sankhya. Earlier, he did enumeration of material elements, but this is Sankhya Yoga that is going to connect us with the Supreme, that helps us in controlling the mind. That's the idea. Shri Bhagwan Vacha Athatip Sampravakshyami Sankhyam Purvair Vinishchitam Yad Vigyaya Puman Sadhyo Jayad Vaikalpikam Brahmam. Lord Shri Krishna said, now I shall describe to you the science of Sankhya, which has been perfectly established by ancient authorities. By understanding this science, a person can immediately give up the illusion of material duality. In the previous chapter, the Lord explained that one can give up material duality by controlling the mind and fixing it in Krishna consciousness. This chapter describes the Sankhya system, in which the difference between matter and spirit is elaborately explained. By hearing this knowledge, one can easily separate the mind from material contamination and fix it on the spiritual platform in Krishna consciousness. The Sankhya philosophy system mentioned here is that presented by Lord Kapila in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and not the atheistic Sankhya presented later by materialists and Mayavadis. The material elements which emanate from the potency of the Lord evolve in a progressive sequence. One should not foolishly think that such evolution begins from an original material element without the assistance of the Lord. This speculative theory is generated from the false ego of conditioned soul and constitutes gross ignorance, unacceptable to the personality of Godhead and his followers. So Krishna said, so I'll describe you the Sankhya Yoga, which has been perfectly established by ancient authorities, not somebody's speculation, some Mayavadi speculation. And this Sankhya system, immediately, by following this, one can immediately give up the illusion of material duality. Okay, let's see what is it. Asit Gyan Matho Artha Ekam Eva Vikalpitam Yada Viveka Nipuna Ado Krita Yugeya Yuge. Originally, during the Krita Yuga, when all men were very expert in spiritual discrimination, and also previous to that, during the period of annihilation, the seer existed alone, non-different from the seen object. So Krita Yuga is the first stage, also known as Satya Yuga, in which knowledge being perfect is not different from its object. So knowledge not different from its object. A seer and seen, it is said. Because everybody understood everything as in the spiritual platform. It's spiritual. In modern society, knowledge is highly speculative and constantly changing. There is often a vast difference between people's theoretical ideas and actual reality. In Satyuga, however, people are Vivek Nipuna, or expert in intelligent discrimination, and thus there is no difference between the vision and reality. In Satyuga, the population in general is self-realized, seeing everything as a potency of the Supreme Lord. They do not artificially create duality between themselves and other living entities. Means they are all on the they see everything on spiritual platform. This is further aspect of the oneness of Satyuga. At the time of annihilation, everything merges to rest within the Lord. And at that time also, there is no difference between the Lord, who becomes the only seer, and the objects of knowledge which are contained within the Lord. Because at the time of annihilation, the material consciousness is completely gone. All the spirit souls are there, and the universe is in the form of Pradhan. It is there, which is all spiritual. So liberated living entities in the eternal spiritual world are never subject to such merging, but remain forever undisturbed in the spiritual forms. Because they voluntarily one with the Lord in love, their abode is never annihilated. So one, being one, doesn't mean we all just merge into each other. Being one means we all are spiritual. तन्माया फल रूपेण केवलम निर्विकल्पितम वांगमनोगोचरम सत्यम द्विधा समभवद बृहत्. That one absolute truth, remaining free from material dualities and inaccessible to ordinary speech and mind, divided himself into two categories, the material nature and the living entities, who are trying to enjoy the manifestations of that nature. So that one absolute truth, which is Supreme Lord, remaining free from material dualities and inaccessible to ordinary speech and mind, means material speech and mind is way beyond that. So he divided himself into material nature and the living entities. Both material nature and living entities are potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So everything comes from him. तयोरेक तरो हि अर्थ प्रकृति सोभयात्मिका ज्ञानम त्वन्यतमो भावा पुरुषा स्वविधीयते. Of these two categories of manifestation, one is material nature, which embodies both the subtle causes and manifest products of matter. The other is a conscious living entity designated as an enjoyer. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Prakriti here refers to the subtle Pradhan, which later becomes manifest as Mahat Tattva. Tamo Raja Sattvam iti Prakritera Bhavan Guna Maya Prakshobhya Manaya Purushanumatina cha. When material nature was agitated by my glands, the three material modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, became manifest to fulfill the pending desires of the conditioned souls. So when the material nature was agitated by my glands, Krishna is telling Uddhavji. That's why people ask, who, Krishna or Vishnu? Who's the Supreme? But we have read in Canto 3 that it's the glands of Lord Vishnu. But Vishnu is expansion of Krishna. The Lord casts his glance over material nature to remind her that the conditioned souls have not worked out the chain of fruitive activity and mental speculation, and that creation is therefore again necessary. The Lord desires that the conditioned souls get the opportunity to become Krishna conscious in love of God by understanding the futility of life without the Lord. The modes of nature arise after the glance of the Lord and become inimical to one another, each mode attempting to conquer the other two. There is constant competition between birth, maintenance, and annihilation. Although a child desires to take birth, the cruel mother may desire to kill the child through abortion. Although we may desire to kill the weeds in a field, they stubbornly take birth again and again. Similarly, we often desire to maintain our physical status quo, but still deterioration sets in. Thus, there is constant competition among the modes of nature. And by their combinations and permutations, the living entities try to enjoy innumerable material situations without Krishna consciousness. The word Purushanumatena indicates that the Lord sets the stage for such material futility so that the conditioned souls will eventually come back home, back to Godhead. So everything we do, just ends up into frustration. There is no full satisfaction or full achievement of anything or everything that we do. It just doesn't happen in material world. And that's why I said, living entities try to enjoy innumerable material situations, but it's just futile. It just result is frustration. So eventually conditioned souls try to come back to God. Tebhya sambhavat sutram mahan sutrena samyutah tato vikurvato jato yo ahankaro vimohana. From these modes arose the primeval sutra along with the Mahatattva. By the transformation of the Mahatattva was generated the false ego, the cause of living entities' bewilderment. According to Srila Sri Goswami, Sutra is the first transformation of material nature that manifests the potency of activity, and it is accompanied by the Mahatattva, which is endowed with the potency of knowledge. In the material world, one's real knowledge is covered by fruitive activity and mental speculation. As one's devotional service to the Lord slackens, these two tendencies grow automatically, just as a diminishing of light automatically brings an increase in darkness. So Mahatattva and starts with the false ego. So false ego, that subtle energy is there, and when the jiva comes in, it just gets covered by that false ego in different modes of material nature. And then we start thinking, I'm man and I'm woman, I'm dog, I'm cat, and I'm tree, I'm bird, and this and that. Vaikarikas tajascha tamasas cheti aham trivrita tan matendriya manasam karanam chedachinmayaha. False ego, which is a cause of physical sensation, the senses and the mind encompasses both spirit and matter and is manifested in three varieties, in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. The word chid, achinmaya, encompassing both spirit and matter, is significant in this regard. The false ego is the illusory combination of the eternal conscious soul and the temporary unconscious body. Because the spirit soul desires to exploit illicitly the creation of God, he is bewildered by the three modes of nature and assumes an illusory identity within the material world. Struggling to enjoy, he becomes more and more entangled in the complexities of illusion and only increases his anxiety. This hopeless situation can be overcome by taking to pure Krishna consciousness, in which the pleasure of the Supreme Lord becomes the only goal of one's life. So this false ego, in any of the three modes of nature, it gives us a different body. And in that body, we think I'm the controller, proprietor, enjoyer, according to the limitations of that body. And then the three modes of nature, that is Maya, it bewilders us more, bewilders that living entity more and more. And from that body, then he starts creating a new body while still in this body. And then more desires are there, and then we get a new body, and then new desires, and new false ego, new subtle body, and this and that. It just goes on and on and on and on, struggling to enjoy, more and more entangled in the complexities of illusion, and only increases his anxiety. And to make the matter more interesting, what Krishna does. Now, every soul has done some pious, some impious activities in previous lives. Of course, lower than human life, there is no karmic reaction. They just keep on living. Evolution goes on. Now, in human form of life, we do both pious and impious activities. And now, which pious activity or which combination of pious activities will result in some results in this life, we don't know. Only Yamraji, who has decided, he knows. So one soul out of trillions and trillions of souls, even if you just look at human beings on Earth, say what, 8 billion population right now. So one soul, he gets the resultant of his past pious activities, and then he starts making more money or gets more power, more better position, whether politically or business wise or sports wise, or becomes a movie actor, gets become a singer, get lots and lots of fan following and money is following. And he starts thinking, and everybody starts thinking, oh, see, he's such a great, so great, he's so wonderful, this, that. And people start following him. And then after a while, his bank balance of pious activities are over, then he starts coming down, and some other souls start getting up, and people start following him. Oh, yeah, we should follow him. He should give us the motivation. He's a good motivating leader, and we should follow his example, follow whatever he says. Then we'll also become successful, and more money and more this and more that, and more money and more this and more that leads to more sense gratification. And mostly it is the sinful activity one does. He doesn't do pious activities after getting more money and more success. Generally, it's a sinful activity. So then he starts going down, and then somebody else comes up, and then the history books are written about him. So Napoleon was this and this and this, or Alexander the Great was this and this and this. Prabhupada went to, I believe he went to Greece. That is where Alexander was from, and he said, "Where is Alexander now?" All you have is one of his statues on one of the squares. And he was Alexander the Great. This is so temporary. But every soul, sooner or later, gets a chance. And if somebody has done sinful activities, and even though he gets a human form of life, but he does, again, very, very bad activities, more bad activities, then he can end up in jail. And maybe some pious activities are done, so he can become a don. And then he ends up in jail and commits more criminal activities and this and that. It's just endless. It's temporary, and it keeps on going, one way or the other. And people, because they don't have this knowledge, they think, oh, I didn't get a proper chance. I could have done this. No, you got the proper chance last life, but you will again get the chance next life. What's a big deal? Right now, you're just going through bad times because of our sinful activities. So once those are over, you will get your chance. Your pious activities results will come back soon, sooner or later. But since we are so much in ignorance, we only look at the present picture. Oh, this guy is good or this guy is bad. We don't know. Every soul is divine. Every soul is pure. Whether the soul is in human form or animal form, insect form, every soul is divine. It's just going through different combinations and permutations of 3 modes of nature at this time. That's all. Otherwise, every soul is divine. Mama Vansho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Every Jiva is my Ansha, Krishna says. But his Maya Shakti is so strong and so has so much of variety. And it's just, illusion is so strong. It just binds us, keeps on binding us. And this is why he has given us this knowledge that just follow this. Arthastan matrikanjagye tamsadi indriyani cha tajasad devata asanna ekadasha kritat. From false ego in the mode of ignorance came the subtle physical perceptions from which the gross elements were generated. From false ego in the mode of passion came the senses, and from false ego in the mode of goodness arose the 11 demigods. From false ego in the mode of ignorance, sound is generated along with the sense of hearing to receive it, and the sky is as its medium. Next, the sensation of touch, air, and the sense of touch are generated. And thus, from subtle to gross, all of the elements and their perceptions are generated. The senses, because they busily engage in activity, are created from false ego in the mode of passion. From false ego in the goodness come 11 demigods, the deities of the directions, the wind and the sun, Varuna, the Ashwini deities, Agni, Indra, Upendra, Mitra, Brahma, and Chandra. So, but even the demigods, they all have material bodies, different permutation combination of earth, water, fire, air, ether. But material bodies are made of this only. And they came from false ego in the mode of goodness. Maya sanchodita bhava sarve samhatya karinam andam utpadaya masur mamaya tanam uttamam. Impelled by me, all these elements to function in an orderly fashion and together give birth to the universal egg, which is my excellent place of residence. Tasminnaham sambhavam ande salila sanstito am nabhyam bhut padmam vishwakhayam tatra chatmabhut. I myself appeared within that egg, which was floating on the causal water, and from my navel arose the universal lotus, the birthplace of self-born Brahma. Atmabhu or Swayambhu, Lord Brahma. The Supreme Lord here describes his appearance in his transcendental pastime form of Sri Narayan. Lord Narayan enters within the universe, but does not give up his purely transcendental body of knowledge and bliss. Lord Brahma, however, born from the Lord's navel lotus, has a material body. Although Lord Brahma is a most powerful mystic, his body, which pervades all material existence, is material. Whereas the body of the Supreme Lord Hari, Narayan, is always transcendental. So that's the difference between Lord Narayan and Brahma. Although Brahmaji is born from Lord Narayan, he appears from Narayan, but he is material. His body is material. Swasvijat tapsa yukto rajasa madanugrihat lokan sapalan vishvatma bhurbhava swariti tridha. Lord Brahma, the soul of the universe, being endowed with the mode of passion, performed great austerities by my mercy, and thus created the three planetary divisions called Bhur, Bhuvar, and Swar, along with their presiding deities. So being endowed, and Krishna says, performed great austerities by my mercy. So as we studied in third canto, when Brahmaji appeared on the lotus flower, he started looking here, there, down, up, know what to do, why he's here. So he went inside the stem of that lotus flower, and he came all the way down to the navel of Lord Vishnu, but still he could not figure out what's the cause of my origin and what's the purpose. So he came back up and he sat down on the lotus, and then he heard the word tap, do tapasya. So here Krishna is saying he performed great austerities by my mercy. And then when he did his tapasya, then Krishna at the right time gave him the knowledge how to do the creation. And also someplace it is mentioned that within the stem of the lotus flower, the blueprint or prototype of the whole universe is kept. So looking at that prototype, just like in construction terms, there's a blueprint. Brahmaji created the whole creation, all the 14 planetary systems outside the stem. Because Krishna has to keep the original inside. Because every night of Brahmaji, the lower planetary systems up to the Swargaloka, everything is destroyed. Every night. So every morning, Brahmaji has to create certain planets, not the whole thing, certain planets. So he again looks at the prototype that is kept inside the stem of the lotus flower. Devanam ok asit swar, bhutanam cha bhuva padam, martyadinam cha bhurloka, siddhanam tritayat param. Heaven was established as a residence of the demigods, Bhuvarlok as that of the ghostly spirits, and the earthly system as a place of human beings and other mortal creatures. Those mystics who strive for liberation are promoted beyond these three divisions. So planets such as Indraloka and Chandraloka are meant for the heavenly enjoyment of the most pious fruitive workers. The highest four planets, however, Satyalok, Maharlok, Janalok, and Tapalok, are meant for those who are most perfectly endeavoring for liberation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so inconceivably merciful that he is promoting the most fallen victims of Kali Yuga beyond these four planets and even beyond Vaikuntha to the supreme planet of Lord Krishna in the spiritual sky called Golok Vrindavan. That is for us. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that heaven is a residence of the demigods, the earth is a residence of the human beings, and in between is a temporary residence for both classes of beings. So such a huge universe, and with so much of variety, so many planetary systems, and in planetary systems, so many planets are there, and with different forms of life at every planet. Adho asuranam naganam omeroko asrajat prabhu trilokyam gateha sarva karmanam trigunatmanam. Lord Brahma created the region below the earth for the demons and the Naga snakes. This way, the destination of the three worlds were arranged as the corresponding reactions for different kinds of work performed within the three modes of nature. Yogasya tapasaschaiva nyasasya gatyo malaha maharjanas tapah satyam bhakti yogasya matgati. By mystic yoga, great austerities and the renounced order of life, the pure destinations of Maharlok, Janalok, Tapalok, and Satyalok are attained. But by devotional service, by devotional yoga, one achieves my transcendental abode. Here Krishna says, Bhakti yogasya madgati. They come to me. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that the word tapsa in this verse refers to austerities performed by brahmacharis and vanprasthas. A brahmachari who practices celibacy perfectly in some particular stage of his life achieves Maharloka. And one who perfectly practices lifelong celibacy achieves Janaloka. By perfect execution of vanprastha, one may achieve Tapaloka, and in the renounced order of life goes to Satyaloka. These different destinations certainly depend on one's seriousness in the yoga system. In the third canto of the Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma explains to the demigods, the inhabitants of Vaikuntha travel in their airplanes made of lapis lazuli, emeralds, and gold. Although crowded by their consorts who have large hips and beautiful smiling faces, they cannot be stimulated to passion by their mirth and beautiful charms. Thus, in the spiritual world, the kingdom of God, the inhabitants have absolutely no desire for personal satisfaction, since they're completely satisfied in love of God. Because they only think of the Lord's pleasure, there is no possibility of cheating, anxiety, lust, disappointment, and so on. So that is spiritual world. Even though ladies are there, beautiful ladies are there, people are not attracted to each other sexually. Maya kalat manadhatra karma yuktam idam jagat guna pravaha etasmin unmajjati nimajjati. All results of fruitive work have been arranged in this world by me, the Supreme Creator acting as a force of time. All results of the fruitive work have been arranged within this world by me. Thus one sometimes rises up towards the surface of this almighty river, of this mighty river of the modes of nature, and sometimes again submerges. So that's how one goes up and down. Unmajjati refers to one's promotion to higher planetary systems, as mentioned in the previous verses. And Nimajjati refers to being submerged in a miserable condition of life by impious activities. In both cases, one is drowning within the mighty river of material existence, which carries one far away from one's real home in the kingdom of God. So, but wherever he is, he's in a miserable condition in the material world. Anuda brihat kusha krisha sthulo yo bhava prasiddhyati sarvo api ubhaya sanyukta prakritya purushena cha. Whatever features visibly exist within this world, small or great, thin or stout, certainly contain both the material nature and its enjoyer, the spirit soul. So whatever feature visibly exists, small or great, thin or stout, has both spirit soul and the material body. Yes, yastu yasya dirantasya savai madhyam chatasya san vikaru vyavaharartho yatha tejas parthivam. Gold and earth are originally existing as ingredients. From gold one may fashion golden ornaments such as bracelets and earrings, and from earth one may fashion clay pots and saucers. The original ingredients, gold and earth, exist before the products made from them. And when the products are eventually destroyed, the original ingredients, gold and earth, will remain. Thus, since the ingredients are present in the beginning and at the end, they must also be present in the middle phase, taking the form of a particular product to which we assign for convenience a particular name such as bracelet, earring, pot, or saucer. We can therefore understand that since the ingredient cause exists before the creation of a product and after the product's destruction, the same ingredient cause must be present during the manifest phase, supporting the product as the basis of its reality. The Lord here explains that the original cause is certainly present in its effect, citing the example of gold and clay, functioning as a causal ingredients of many different products, in which gold and clay continue to be present. So what it is saying is, so gold and clay, suppose gold comes from mine, gold mines are people take out gold and then refine it, make the bracelet or a ring, and then later the bracelet or the ring can be transformed into something else. But the gold remains. Depends, different forms could be there, but the gold remains as it is. So similarly, when we see this body, right now we see this body as human being, as a man, but the ingredients were there before: earth, water, fire, air, ether. And after this body dies and decays, and in our case we cremate, it again transforms into earth, water, fire, air, ether. Just the shape changes. So, yad upadaya purvastu bhavo vikurute param adiranto yada yasya tat satyam abhidhiyate. A material object itself composed of an essential ingredient creates another material object through transformation. Thus, one created object becomes the cause and basis of another created object. A particular thing may just be called real in that it possesses the basic nature of another object that constitutes its origin and final state. One may understand the purport of this verse through the simple analogy of a clay pot. A clay pot is formed from a lump of clay, which is itself prepared from the earth. In this case, earth is the original ingredient forming the clay lump, and the clay lump is in a sense the original cause of the pot. When the pot is destroyed, it will again assume the designation clay and ultimately merge back into the earth, its original cause. So in relation to the clay pot, clay is a beginning and final state. Thus the pot is called real, for it possesses the essential characteristics of clay, which exist before and after the existence of the functioning instrument known as the pot. Similarly, earth exists before and after the clay, and thus clay may be considered real because it possesses the essential characteristics of earth, which exist before and after the existence of the clay. Now, similarly, earth and other elements are created from Tattva, which exists before and after the existence of the elements, which may be considered real because they possess the essential characteristics of the Mahatattva. Now, Mahatattva is ultimately the creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who remains before and after the annihilation. So ultimately, everything comes from the Lord. Nothing can happen, nothing can exist without the Lord. And everything is energy of the Lord. It just, we don't see it. That's where the problem is. So we are only, suppose we are looking at a pot, we only see the pot. We don't see the cause of the pot is the clay. And of course, the clay on its own is not going to mix to make the pot. Somebody has to do that function. That is spirit soul. प्रकृतिर्यस्योपपादानम् आधार पुरुषा परा सतो अभिव्यंजकः कालो ब्रह्म तत्त्रयम् त्वहम्. The material universe may be considered real, having nature as its original ingredient and final state. Lord Mahavishnu is a resting place of nature, which becomes manifest by the power of time. Thus, nature, the Almighty Vishnu, and time are not different from me, the Supreme Absolute Truth. Now, here Krishna is saying, I am the Supreme Absolute Truth. Adhara Purusha Para. Material nature is the energy of the Lord Mahavishnu, is his plenary portion, and time represents the Lord's activity. Lord means Lord Krishna. In this way, time and nature are always subservient to the Supreme Personality of God, who creates, maintains, and annihilates all that exists through the agency of his potencies and plenary portions. In other words, Lord Krishna is the absolute truth because he contains all existence within himself. So ultimately, it's him only. Sarga pravartate tavat porva pariyena nityashah mahana guna visargartha sthiti anto yavadikshanam. As long as the Supreme Personality of God continues to glance upon nature, the material world continues to exist, perpetually manifesting through procreation the great and variegated flow of universal creation. Although the Mahatattva, impelled by the force of time, is the ingredient cause of this world, it is clearly explained here that the Supreme Lord is personally the only ultimate cause of all that exists. Time and nature are powerless to act without the glance of the personality of Godhead. He creates unlimited material variety for the sense gratification of the conditioned souls who try to enjoy life as the children of particular parents and as parents of particular children throughout the 8,400,000 species of life. But without his glance, and not just his glance, without him entering into each and every atom of the universe, no activity is possible. Although everything is his energy. So complicated. I guess I can stop here because there's serious, little technical discussion. So I'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Though it is technical, Prabhuji, it's very interesting.
Ajit?
Though it is very technical, but it's very interesting also. It's going on nicely.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Chalo, we'll cover it tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri
Thank you, Manta. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Jai Srila Prabhupada.